everybody to Vecca Plan Virtual Pod. Um, I am going solo dolo today with Jeff Cohn from Digitech System, and I am going to give Austin a hard time because he's not here and he sucks. I'm just kidding. We love Austin. Can't be with us today. Had something come up last minute. But obviously, we're excited coming up here, San Diego. We're going to do some filming at iSigma with some people. But this is a topic I've really been wanting to get into. And so before we get too much into the topic, I'm going to go ahead and let Jeff introduce himself and his time in the industry, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Stephen, for setting this up. I told you this recently. You deserve a lot of credit for putting this in place. I've been known over the years to say that this would be a great platform for our industry, but you're actually doing it. Kudos to you, and thanks for including me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's funny. I never put two and two together till a while back. And I was actually on the board, and me and Tom got to know each other. And I was, Tom is, kind of became a mentor while I was on the board, but I'm sure mentored you in a long, long ways. So tell me a little bit about your history and in the industry and your backstory and how you got into all of this.
Absolutely. So, I often say I've pretty much spent my entire career in this industry, about 2 decades now, and Tom's have been an awesome mentor of mine. It just kind of happened accidentally. Got started with a privately owned company, Business Records Management in Tampa, Florida. We were a box and shredding company. I think he probably put it in these terms back then. He said, you're a young whippersnapper that knows something about technology, and we want to expand into document scanning, right?
There you go.
Um, this is before iSigma. There was Prism and Nade, and through there we, connected up with the right resources to start up a scanning business. Had a lot of success with it. Expanded into digital solutions, so storing records digitally for our box clients, and had a lot of success. We had a successful exit end of 2019. I had a brief stint helping Greenfield, an ITAD company in Central Florida, but an opportunity presented itself to join the team at Digitech. During that process, they were our strategic partner for capture and hosted doc management. And so
Okay.
now I manage the channel doing that.
Okay. And so yeah, I mean, what does that, really look like? What's the kind of um the big happenings? I know document scanning is a part of our industry, right? It's definitely not the whole of it, and it's like many other things in our industry, there's a lot of verticals that are aligned, and document scanning is really one of those. So, what's going on with it today? What's the happenings in that field for people that aren't really in it, but have thought about stepping their toes in it? What's kind of going on?
So a lot, this whole time that I've been in this industry, digitization has been on the upswing, right?
Yep.
Around, I would say around 2019, 2020, there was a major growth moment again. Remote work, people are looking for records, they can't
Yep.
find things.
COVID.
Obviously, generational shifts as well. So younger people are starting to work and kind of demand things in digital form. And
Yep.
then now, AI is even greater upswing shift again, right? They're leveraging these tools that, now suddenly just having a scanned document isn't all that you can do, right? AI is providing contextual insights around this information, which then drives people back to the table to say, well, gosh, what else could we be doing? Where does this data reside? A big change today, it's not always paper scanning. So a lot of times when I'm on demos with my partners and their customers, there's that component of, hey, we've got these boxes, we need to get this stuff digitized. But then there's been a decade of digital files being created within their network, within their, Dropbox account or their Google Drive, right? And they're like, help us with this. We can't make sense of it.
Yep.
Everybody's naming things differently. We can't find things, right? And in a pre-AI world, that's a big lift, right? Like that's just like
Yep.
a huge consulting thing that a lot of companies are not going to tackle. These AI tools that we'll talk about today are really being leveraged to automatically extract all those insights and make that information accessible. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love it, and so you kind of stepped into it. Obviously, AI is our conversation of topic today, and it's a big one, right? Like it's not only the hot button word. It's been, it was kind of beginning to be a real big hot button word last at the conference last year, but obviously even more so now. It's constantly in the news, good, bad, and otherwise. And I think it's really just for me a fun topic. Like I did not like AI in the beginning. I was like, hey, this is going to be Cybernet, Terminator is definitely coming out of AI. Like ChatGPT is going to be Arnold Schwarzenegger one day, and whatever, right? And you can go there with it very easily and be like, hey, I don't want to use it. But then I also realized there's a lot of people just using it, and then I also kind of realized, wait a second, I'm already using AI in my everyday life. Like I just didn't realize it. Like some of these systems, right? Kind of goes even to like Siri, right? Like Siri was an early kind of AI, and it's now even more so, right? Like now it really is. Amazon Alexa is an early AI, right? Like those things were AI. We just didn't really think about them in that term to like this big sculpture. So for me, obviously, I use it now in my daily life all the time, uh, let alone business. And so, what are some ways you deal with it in a daily basis, like outside of business? Like, what's some things that you have realized like this is good for?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, working in technology in at a company that develops AI software, it's like I can't get away from it, right? And it's funny too because even in the just broad industry of document management, information management, this is the first moment where it's like I can hang out, with some guys at a bar and they say, "What do you do?" And I'm like, AI. Whereas the last 20 years, I'd go, "Well, you won't understand."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right? But in a personal way, we have a lot of fun with it. When I say we, I mean, my wife and my kids, like we've done everything from I do a lot of ancestry work, and so we've actually started like recreating family stories in like kid story form, where illustratively we can bring people back to life, which has been kind of cool.
That's awesome.
My son and I make AI music. Some people in the industry know this, some don't. I have a long history in music and playing music. When I first discovered that, it was like an out of body experience. I was like, I don't understand how that just got created. My wife last year for her birthday, I wrote her a song with AI. I had AI design cover art. I I printed it, pressed it to vinyl, and it showed up at my doorstep 2 days later. And I was like, I don't understand how this happened.
That's that is so cool, dude. That is so
Yeah.
awesome.
So, how about yourself?
Yeah, it's crazy. So for me, it started out in work. And then I realized one day I was like trying to do a recipe or something because I've become more of a chef in my older age. Got three young kids myself, so between me and my wife, we both work, and so there's just days that hey, I'm the guy, and so kind of had to do things and like, hey, I have this, this, and this. What can I make a recipe? And now like I'm actually a decent chef. My wife knows me as a tinkerer. I probably tinker too much with my recipes. A lot of times I hit it pretty well in the first time. But it's funny that you could literally look in your fridge and be like, in your pantry and be like, hey, I have these items. Let me make a good meal. What could I make out of it? And it can like populate it out and like give you ideas. Um, and then, general research, do a ton of research now with AI, right? Like that's probably one of the biggest things. And what I really love about some of the tools that I use specifically, like I'm a big Gemini guy, but specifically with that is that it links all the sources. So then like I know I can click into those links and drill down on that information, not just take it what it's worth, because it is sometimes incorrect, but like recently I'm doing a car search, like looking for a vehicle and trying to find something that, makes sense and suits all of our needs. And before, just going into, look for stuff like, hey, I'm really trying to stay out of the dealership. And so this has really actually helped with that. So I think research as a tool has been really positive. And then I'm pretty sure that my wife is going to use AI for picking her March Madness teams. I'm pretty
Ooh,
confident that's going to be her tool of choice.
I'm
She
as prepared as ever for fantasy football.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Fantasy football, you know what I'm saying? I don't promote gambling, but obviously there's definitely ways that you can use it to help with the analytics and data. But yeah, I mean, I definitely used it for fantasy as well, and it's helpful, I mean, it saves a lot of time and research and condenses the time to do things. And, I think that's where it really does make you realize, like, man, the productivity, like what used to take me half an hour of research, I can condense that into 5 minutes. And I need to check my sources, especially if it's an important topic. But if it's fantasy football, I'm like, okay, I'm not so worried about it, right? Like it just saved me an hour and I'm gonna go with it, right? But like when it comes to business, then that's where you kind of break into that more of that care for it. Um and I think, I think there is some of that, bothers people too of like, is AI overhyped? Like, is AI like, is it bigger than what we think it is? And like, I don't know, kind of throw that back to you. Like, how do you see it? I mean, you more so than me, I'm, in manufacturing, I use it, I leverage it, but like you being in it every day, like, how do you see the hype, especially, I mean, we see it in the stock markets, it's like crazy, like just investments into it. So how are you seeing that from your side, literally being in it every day?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. So like first off, everybody's somewhere on this scale of how much they're using it, what are they using it for, what are they gaining from using it, consumer grade, enterprise grade. I do think most of, what we think when we hear is it overhyped is driven by one, market analysis and valuations of companies, and two, like, just the doom scrolling social media news bite world that we live in, right? Like
Yep.
anybody who's trying to generate content is more likely to get some attention if it's saying something, bold and making a big claim.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think like how how people are using this is driven a lot by like what they're using it for. So like if you're gaining some significant insight and some inquisitive mind with how you're using these tools, you're going deeper and deeper, right? Like I'll kind of compare this to if I tried to explain to kids today the patience I had in the 90s to wait for that dial-up modem to connect because of what was on the other side, they wouldn't believe that, right? And
Yep.
I'd be like, no, it was so profound that
Yep.
like I would have waited all day for that thing to connect and get me onto AOL, right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
so I think we're in a similar moment in time where at that same moment there were other kids who were like, that's not that interesting to me. So it seems like a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
Like, and similarly, like there's moments where I'm like, man, I gotta put AI down because it's all consuming, right? Because it is really profound right now. And we're still figuring out, what are all these things and how does it play a role in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, and dude, that really brings me kind of to like my first experience with it. I was a high level, basically the highest level manager I could be in this industry that you can be. And when the chat kind of GPT boom happened. And I can remember like being in my car getting a text message from the owner and being like, ChatGPT, we got to figure it out, like, and I'm over here, like, again, going back to my doomsday, like, I'm out, like, I don't want to do anything with this. And I quickly realized, like, I had staff that were like getting involved and using it, whether I knew about it or not. And I think it became a quickly a thing of like, holy cow, like, okay, I need to have an idea of what's going on because I'm kind of beholden to it. And I say this, and I'll say this for me and Jeff as a caveat: we are definitely not lawyers in any form or fashion, so don't take this as legal advice. But it definitely quickly, as I researched, realized how safe we need to be with it too. And I think one thing that everybody should take away from this, if you don't take a single thing away from this conversation, AI is not, going to be this the terrible thing, and everybody's using it, so it's okay. But I caveat that with be very mindful of how you use it, what you put into it, what you're using it to generate for. Especially like I think the early adopters was like marketing, 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 like boom, this is all we're gonna do all of our blogs AI. You can't do that. A, B, Google and everybody else has quickly, back channeled and been like, hey, okay, yeah, this is all written by AI, boom, and it knocks your score down. So you gotta still do the work, but also just from a perspective of ensuring you're cautious about your brand and stuff like that, like branding and what you actually feed it. It is important to pay attention, and there's easy way around that, right? Like just I'll give a simple example that I don't think puts anything out here other than just like a shredding company instead of the name of your company, right? That protects you a little bit. And again, I'm not giving legal advice, just saying if you do stuff like that, you should be good. And I think it's important that people start looking about that. I'll let you kind of go however far you want to go down that rabbit hole, but I do think that's just a little bit of like advice I want to give to people of just be cautious too.
Yeah, I mean we're definitely at an early stage period where, there are concerns that organizations, may or may not know how their employees are engaging with these tools. I mean, I would basically just bet that that's happening everywhere. Um, I liken it to like in our industry going back years ago, at a certain point, HIPAA compliance and training was this new thing that we all had to figure out. And inevitably, right, it's do we have a policy? Can we document how we implement our policy and what is our insurance coverage? And I think that at some point, I don't know where, again, I'm not an attorney, but I would estimate that, the legal climate will figure out how to kind of structure that and normalize that. And every organization is going to go through training on what you can and cannot do. In my industry specifically, like as a software platform, we are doing things that are unique to data security because we explicitly opt out of training models. So what
Perfect.
that means is like, within system, right? We give our customers access to like every model you can think of. There's like 24 different models, whether it's Anthropic, OpenAI, AWS, Gemini, right? But we opt out, they're all pre-trained. So like as an example, even though I can ask system, what's this invoice number? I can't ask it, tell me a summary of the stock market yesterday because it's not actually getting trained on future data, right?
Right.
And it's not going to learn my data. Now there's actually advantages to training models from an accuracy perspective, right? Because they can begin to learn. When you talk to chat, just ask chat tomorrow, hey, what do you know about me? It'll blow your mind,
Right.
right? But in an enterprise grade side, like we lean towards data security, we're just trying to do these operational processes. We're not teaching it, right? But that's separate from, I think, internal training, which is what you're talking about. And
Yeah.
it's a focus.
But I also think it's important of like that's you kind of what you're talking about there is really where there's controls, right? And I think, if you're just new to AI in this conversation, you're like, hey, you know, I'm glad you guys are doing this topic. I didn't know where to start. I would start with most everybody has a legal counsel, so it's a hot topic for a legal counsel too. So go ahead and reach out to them. If your legal counsel is telling you just stay away from it, probably not like that's not true either. But there's extremes to everything. But also there's controls. Like you can go in and set the parameters and control. And paid for services give you more controls, right? So yes, it is something you want to pay for. But if you want the best results out of it, that's what you're gonna want to do. I also think it's very important too, and I'll just kind of give you my simple brief on this of like there's a lot of AI tools. Like I saw this thing on LinkedIn the other day, and it was like a list of AI tools for all these things and things and things, right? And like system is very specific to our industry, or ancillary industries around what we do. But I would say start with one of the basic ones and do a basic paid for version. I do Gemini. I'm a huge Google guy. I like Google, always kind of have been. I like the ease. it easily will come up if I am working on something and be like working on a template, and it'll be like, all right, here's a spreadsheet template for you. Here's a document format template for you. Like it makes it easy for those things. That's why I prefer it. But you can do paid versions that give you more control, access, and information to set those parameters, kind of to your point. And then you can also set like, hey, I like a document that says, this is me, this is what I do, and like this is how I want it formatted, for email specifically. And
Right.
that helps too with like generating better results. But what do you like from a simple perspective? And then my second question is, what is system? Tell us more about it.
Yeah, yeah. So, as far as like if there's certain models I like, it's interesting. So, in a consumer side of things, like, I use ChatGPT a lot, but um, I'm fortunate that I get to use all these models, in my corporate life. So, I see them all. Specific to like what we do with document management, extracting data, getting context out of data. One of the things, and I'll kind of dovetail into what system is. One of the things that's unique in system is we kind of look at it as like an AI clearinghouse. So our users, whether it's our partners that are using it within their scanning operation or whether it's downstream customers, they're gaining access to all of the models in one platform. And so like when you're processing documents, especially like complex old documents, complicated things, you can compare multiple models. And so it's really interesting because a lot of people will ask me, "Hey, well, that's cool. You have all these models. What's the best one?" Right?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for it, right?
Yeah.
But being able to in one dashboard, run your process and compare the results of the different models versus I'm going to go subscribe with this model. I'm going to set up an account with that model. Nobody really has the wherewithal for that, right? You do recognize in doing that these models are good at different things. Some are meant more for data, some are meant more for like analytics. They have different cost structures. The way they are tokenized are different, right? So it it trying to master that is actually quite hard. Being able to just have multiple lanes with multiple models and see the results is really dynamic. So system, I'll give you kind of the 10,000 foot view. Digitech, we've been developing this product for many years, and it's a full-blown document management platform. So you can store your files in there, search, retrieve, records retention, workflow, everything you would expect. But as we've been developing it alongside AI, it's really kind of evolved and gone on a journey because AI has opened up so many other things that you can do with this information. And so we have some people that use it as a pure repository. We have other people that are using it as an AI tool for extracting data. Of course, a large part of our channel are commercial scanning operations, right? And so, a lot of those companies, as they got access to the platform, they just kind of raised their hand and said, this is amazing. I also want to use this for my scanning operation, right?
Right.
Because I can automate my indexing. I can, make handwriting recognition legible for search, all of these different things, right? And so it's an amazing time. I feel very fortunate to be involved. Every day, I have companies coming to me with complicated document scanning, problems to solve, and it's fun to just open up the AI toolkit and show them what you can do.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. And I think kind of you're in a unique position, right? Like where like you said, you have all these other, models and platforms that you're able to use with yours, and it's like one's not better than the other. I totally agree with that. Like I actually use Gemini to like refer me to other like models. Like, hey, what is the best for this thing, and really use Gemini is really my research. And it kind of goes back to me, kind of almost like that Google thing. Like I almost actually go all the way back to like Ask Jeeves. Like I feel like Ask Jeeves was probably like the OG like AI, even though we don't realize it. But it was really like, you talked about AOL earlier and dial up. So I was thinking about Ask Jeeves. But really, then everybody's like Google it, right? And now I feel like we're kind of we're transitioning out of Google it to like AI it, right? And the cool thing is AI is able to reach across all platforms, and that's where I kind of use especially Gemini specifically for myself, is like really my research tool, and then drill me down to the right thing, right? And I think that's what you can do. And I don't think there's right and wrong. I think you hit the answer that I wanted to hear really without telling you that of like, I think there's a lot of different great tools out there. I don't also think you have to go way down the rabbit hole of all these super specific ones, but I think if you actually use it, it's going to give you good feedback on what these tools are already doing because it's learning who's using the most, what's most productive. And so I think that's awesome. And I think that's really cool. And you talked about some of the efficiencies it's doing with scanning. I think that's incredible. I mean, obviously I never got big into scanning a little bit, but um one of the things that I really always kind of when I was in it was like OCRing and AI recognition, like I'm sure are like these new things, right? Like how are you seeing that with AI now? Because OCR was like one of the big things that scanning companies were really doing. And now with AI, it can recognize like I've just taken photos and it recognizes stuff. So how are you seeing that working and playing out?
It's a big transition, and I spend a lot of my time with folks trying to educate on this. You know, OCR, optical character recognition, you're right. It's the technology that scanning companies have used for a long time, but it's always had limitations, right? Being able to make printed text readable is great. It's always been very helpful. Anytime somebody had handwriting text, it was game over, right? Similarly, if you wanted to try to automate the manual data entry of all of this indexing or all of this metadata, you were kind of hoping that you could have this very structured document that was the same every single time so that you could use some zonal OCR technology to say, hey, look in this exact area, this information will be there and extract it automatically. And if I could get 80% success rate on that, I'd be thrilled, right? That led the scanning industry to try to focus on certain verticals, the biggest one being invoices, right? They're generally structured the same, but more importantly, they come in every month. They've got some value to them. If we can keep templating each new invoice format, eventually we can automate a lot of this. Recognition technology, along with AI, gives contextual understanding of what the file is that AI is looking at, right? It actually understands where to find this information, what it is, and what you're trying to discern from it. In the simplest way I demonstrate this to people that makes them go, okay, I think I get it now, is we will set up an index criteria for a bunch of photographs, right? To say, classify these photographs into a category, give them a name, give them a summary, tell me if there's a car accident in these photographs, right? Why? Because guess what? There is no text.
Right,
It
right.
OCR can't do that. There's not coordinates and text. It's reading and analyzing it. I took this really far at an event. I was talking to, a bunch of scanning operators, and I wanted them to feel like they needed to kind of call my bluff on this technology. And so I said, hey, look, my wife just texted me a video of my son jumping in the pool. I'm going to throw this in the system and have it archive it and give it all this index criteria. And they're like, yeah, that won't work. I'm like, it will. It's no different than how you're talking to Chat GPT. The difference is you're containerizing it with your business records and you're putting it into a repeatable workflow to say, now every time I get a new legal contract in my system, I want the limitation of liability, I want the renewal language, and I want the early termination language. And I want that sent to me in an email debriefing every time a new contract shows up.
Yep.
Bam, done.
That is fantastic. No, I mean that is so I mean to like a softer example, real world example in this I'll go back to my car purchase that I'm doing right now is literally my Google inbox now already does it, with Gemini and me are just becoming one super Stevo. And
Right.
and literally I'm having this conversation with a lender and like it is now like it just like creates a takes looks at our emails and creates a quick description of what's going on in the email chain. So we have a 11 page or 6 emails from me, 6 emails from her back and forth, and I have a quick 3 4 bullet points tells me everything about the entire conversation. It contextualizes it like you said, puts it into like and it's just reading the emails. It's similar, right? So you take a document, take an invoice, and contextualize it, and takes it that next step, right, where it's really the understanding, the learning of it And that's where you're really just getting massive things. And so I'm going to dovetail that in because you said something that I think was really great about invoices, because I know you're heavy scanning. I know you love the RIM industry outside of just scanning. And I think that's one thing that, I see how we could do it in our industry. And I think people need to look beyond just, hey, it's not just about scanning, ways I can use this. So, what's a way I feel like, and I feel like you brought up a good one, was like with invoicing, like how could that be super useful for somebody in this industry? Like, hey, I don't have scanning and I don't have a scanning operation, but like, how is that useful to them to have an AI
like
like a
in
system?
their operation.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's funny. I work remote. I'm in my office remote, right? And I was having this conversation literally yesterday with a partner, and we were talking about, different opportunities that maybe didn't exist before. And I was saying how, a lot of, handwritten documentation still takes place in, a lot of just small to medium sized American businesses, right?
right,
And I told him, so yesterday I had a new AC unit installed in my house, right? And I was looking at, and it's still sitting here on my desk. I was looking at the work order that they wrote up for me, right? All handwriting, right? It's carbon
right,
paper. They've got their logo and they've got certain form information here, but then everything else is all written on here. And I was explaining this to the partner. I said, I see a ton of these opportunities. We're starting to get on demos where, there's a need for this. And I swear, after the call, the dude came, knocked on my door, and he said, "Hey, I apologize. I overheard some of that. Can you tell me a little bit more what you're talking about?" Right? And I didn't know if he was like kind of spooked because I was talking about his documents. But lo and behold, he says to me, he goes, "Yeah, we scan all of those in our office. They go in a drive, and like no one can ever find anything." He's like, "Show me like how this works." And so I was like, "Do you mind?" And I told him, I go, if you don't mind, bring a couple dozen of them to me. If you'll let me use them in demos to explain, because we're always looking for sample data. And he was
Sure.
like, absolutely, dude. He's like, we seriously need that. It's a big problem. And I was like, that is too funny. Like
Yeah.
selling in spite of myself, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and it's hard not to, man. I mean that's why I love what you guys are doing at System, and I know we have a huge AI, and ITAD is like another focus for looking at the sessions this year for iSigma, and I think it's important we're talking about it. Again, I want to talk about the controversial topics. I want to talk about the important topics. I want to talk about where people are at. That's what this
Right.
platform is for. And I think about people that are doing subcontract work, right? Like there's a massive scale of subcontract work in our industry, right? Scanning does subcontracting. There's medical waste does a ton of subcontracting, shredding, records, all of them do. It's just a huge part of this industry, always has been.
And
And
we
to
know someone in the office is manually putting that in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, yeah. And not only that, but like it's five different ways, right? Like, but if you had a technology that says, hey, no, regardless, I know this is an invoice, or hey, I know this is a work order, or I know this is a subcontract invoice, or whatever it is, where it's like, hey, I know the fields I'm looking for. I can get one from A, B, and C company. They all look a little bit different because everybody, somebody's using Easy Shred, somebody's
Yeah.
using recall, somebody's using O'Neill, and they all look a little different, but it pulls the same, data that you need to get what you need. I mean, I think there's a lot of use cases for this kind of stuff that is really important. So yeah, I mean, I think that's huge. And I think there's ways to make this easier for business, just B2B business that people are just, it's again, it goes back to that time, right? Like there's two commodities in the world that you can't get any more of. It's land and time, right? They're not building any more land. Musk is trying to get to Mars, but it's going to take a while. And we don't have any more time. You can't rebuild your time, and so I think that's where it's so essential to this industry. What are some other ways you might see, like just outside of scanning world? I'll pull you out of scanning real quick. There's some other ways you think you could see it used in more of the RIM world, the shredding and storage.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm going to talk kind of more broadly about AI as opposed to document management technology.
Sure.
Sometimes there's overlap, right? I wanted to
Right, right,
extract this
right.
data. But I do think like, business operations in general, There's so many opportunities. Some things that, you posed this question to me, and some things that I've been thinking about. I've been out of Shred for probably at least 6 years now, but I know like our mobile units, they're going to go do those drops, and we're going to get those weigh tickets, and it's all scribbled down on a piece of paper how much we got, and it's always fluctuating. I would immediately be extracting all that data so I can have analytics monitoring what I'm getting, et cetera, right? Even
Especially if
on
you're
the
using different recyclers too, right? Like some people don't just use one, you know?
right. Yeah, yeah, depending on your state. I think also, on the certification side, right? Like I could probably feed all of my NATE certification requirements and immediately build a process that's giving me an easy reminder, right? Give my ops guys something easy and manageable, not just drop a load on them the week before they're going to come out, right? Um, even, on your side of the world, like, taking, manuals around, manufacturing of products, right? And being able to say like, I can troubleshoot this much faster by, letting an AI build a chatbot for me. Again, containerized. I don't want you feeding that to public chat GPT, right? There's intellectual
Right,
property there, but
right,
containerized where now the manufacturer can say, rather than wasting time on the phone with everybody, start here, right? You're going to get your
right.
answers, things like that. There's obvious stuff like HR and onboarding and things like that. I think that'll be targeted by software in those industries.
Yeah,
But there's a lot.
yeah.
Take your CRM, right? Feed it. You'll be shocked what you will learn. You will feel like you just hired three new VPs of sales in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree, man. I think that it's really what I come out of this more than anything is like, what ways can't you use AI? Right? Like, I mean, it really is like
It
there's
can't install the air conditioner for me.
right, right. It
That's the big
literally
takeaway.
that's why they still need us, right?
Yeah.
That's why Cybernet hasn't taken over yet because they still need us. But yeah, it is really true that like there's a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can use it. And I think, I think the NATE certification is a huge one. I've gotten a ton of questions on that recently. Just, because of my background. And I feel like there's also a lot of newbies getting into this industry. And so again, we're having like another cycle of that, with some of the acquisitions. And so I think, yeah, I think that's, hey, if you can optimize these things from day one, especially if you already have another business line and you're kind of creating shredding as a secondary, vertical to what you're already doing, which is most of what we're seeing. This is a great way to kind of keep those things separate, but also container things towards like, all right, hey, this helps me clear up this. This helps me clear up that. Makes your time a lot easier, a bigger use of your time. Yeah, man, I love all this. I mean, if there's one big takeaway that Jeff Cohn has for everybody about AI, what would be your one big takeaway? I kind of gave mine earlier, but what's your one big takeaway?
I mean, in a general level, you're going to hear this anywhere you turn in the business community. You need to be learning these tools. I don't think there's an argument to be had. You have to. If you need a starting place for that, whatever segment of your business, find a subject matter expert, and have them point you in a direction. I think specific to the document management industry, I see all the potential. So, I often say that right now we're still solving for yesterday's problems, right?
Hmm.
So like whether it's scanning companies I work with or whether it's hardware resellers that I work with, they're still generally starting with that, hey, they got all this paper, right? But the reality to me is these tools can be leveraged to offer bigger solutions to your customers, right? Whether we're saying that in the sense of like a stickier recurring revenue stream, or whether we're saying that in terms of something that's, actually delivering downstream value, right? That you're no longer just handing them a PDF, right?
Right.
You're handing them an application that's giving them insights to tons of data, right?
Hmm.
So I think you have to start somewhere. And I think it's an awesome time for our industry. The other thing I'll say real quick, because I was thinking about this, yes, our industry kind of has this huge shredding footprint, right? And this other records footprint, and we have a lot of conversations around like better representation of technology and things like that. I spend a ton of my time, and if I could deliver something to our audience and invite it, I spend a lot of my time um, trying to teach or find strategic partnerships between those industries, right? Because although it might not make sense for a shredding company to expand into scanning, it would definitely make sense to get a strategic partner that offers that service. It could be informal through referral opportunities, or it could be, as you mentioned, subcontracting opportunities. I've set up companies that, they say they're scanning, right? But they have a strategic partner that I've introduced them to, and their sales, run wild with it, right? Because those are big opportunities for sales. And it goes even further, right? Like it could be, a hardware vendor that's not necessarily represented in iSigma, but giving them a strategic partnership with a shred company, right? I see that now kind of being more holistically broader channel, that there's a ton of opportunity left on the table.
Yeah, yeah, I know me and you are very aligned in that. You know, that's something both me and you is kind of a mission and why we've in the latter years really connected more and more and seen that because and that's why I'm super another reason I want to have you on. You just have a heart for this industry as a whole, right? There is a whole like yeah, there's the subsets of scanning records shredding, medical waste, whatever. But there's all these kind of outer line, different softwares and things that are really it's a whole ecosystem that really is affecting each other. And I think you're totally right. I think there's a different, better way. And if you are willing to adopt and adapt, if you're willing to adopt and adapt, you will have a huge opportunity to offer your customers bigger and better ways because you're right. When we start looking forward in solutions, I think you're gonna really see it's kind of like the dot-com bubble, where it's like, hey, everybody's trying to figure it out, and then it kind of happened, and I think that's where it kind of reminds me of that a lot too, of like, hey, we're in this bubble. There's so much going on. There's a lot of different things, but like there is a path forward. And if you're willing to adopt it and adapt to it, you're going to have a huge, huge opportunity as you push out. So, man, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Obviously, this is awesome. We appreciate all your information on this topic because it is a big one. We could have gone a million different ways and down a bunch of rabbit holes, but obviously trying to just hit the highlights, I think was really great for everybody and what I know your goal is to talk about it, not just about system, and I appreciate that because you beautifully weaved it all in, and I think you guys are doing some great stuff. So I wish you nothing but the best for you guys. And hey, man, I'm excited to see you guys in San Diego. To all the viewers, obviously San Diego, we're coming to places where podcasts stream. We're getting that done, so that'll be coming here real soon. So if you're not watching us on YouTube and subscribing there yet, there's gonna be places for everybody to subscribe as well. Feel free to share it with people. Jeff, thank you. And on to the next one, brother.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. You're doing good things, and I'll see you in San Diego.
Thanks, man.
1, 2,